Most people don't feel trapped. That's the first lie. They feel comfortable, they feel busy, they feel on track. And that's exactly why they never leave, because real traps don't feel like cages, they feel like progress. You wake up, you work, you improve a little, you pay your bills, you reward yourself, you repeat. Nothing feels wrong enough to escape, nothing feels urgent enough to change. And that's not an accident. The system doesn't trap people by force anymore, it traps them by optimization, by giving you just enough progress to stay, just enough freedom to comply, just enough reward to not ask deeper questions. You're not stuck because you're lazy. You're stuck because the environment is engineered to keep you exactly where you are. And once you see that, you'll realize something uncomfortable. The problem was never you, but the solution still is. Here's how containment actually works. The first layer is controlled ambition. You're encouraged to want more, but only in approved directions. Work harder, get promoted, upgrade your lifestyle, buy better things, climb a little higher, notice what's missing. No one encourages you to reduce dependency. No one teaches leverage early. No one pushes ownership instead of income. Ambition is allowed, but independence is delayed, because ambition without leverage feeds the system. Independence threatens it. So you're taught to chase titles instead of control, credentials instead of equity, salary instead of systems. You're rewarded for effort, not for escape velocity. That's containment layer 1. The second layer is time fragmentation. Your day is broken into pieces that look harmless. Commute, meetings, notifications, emails, obligations, maintenance tasks. Nothing here feels evil, but collectively it destroys deep thought. You don't have long, uninterrupted blocks of mental space, and without those, you can't design exits. You can only react. The system doesn't need to stop you from thinking. It just needs to keep you too busy to finish a thought, because escape requires clarity, and clarity requires silence. That's why silence is so rare now. The third layer is permission-based confidence. You're taught that legitimacy comes from approval, degrees, certifications, managers, audiences, followers. You slowly outsource belief in yourself. Instead of asking, does this work? You ask, am I allowed to do this? Instead of testing reality, you wait for validation. That's containment through hesitation. The system doesn't tell you no, it teaches you to ask first. And people who ask for permission never move faster than the system that grants it. The fourth layer is reward substitution. Real freedom is delayed, so substitutes are offered. Entertainment instead of fulfillment, consumption instead of creation, status signals instead of sovereignty. You're exhausted, so you reward yourself. You feel empty, so you distract yourself. You feel behind, so you numb yourself. And again, nothing feels evil, but substitutes keep you pacified. They keep you from feeling the discomfort that drives transformation. Discomfort is dangerous to a system built on compliance, so it gives you dopamine instead of direction. Here's the brutal part. None of this requires malicious intent. It doesn't need villains. It doesn't need conspiracies. It works because it aligns incentives. Institutions want predictability. Markets want consistency. Employers want reliability. Freedom creates variance. Variance creates risk. So the system quietly favors people who stay in lanes and penalizes people who move too unpredictably. That's why breaking out feels unnatural, why it feels irresponsible, why it feels risky even when it's logical. You're not broken for feeling resistance. That resistance is the containment system activating. Now here's where most people get stuck. They recognize the trap intellectually, but they don't change behaviorally. They watch videos, they read books, they agree. Then they go back to the same routines. Why? Because awareness without restructuring changes nothing. You don't escape by motivation. You escape by rebuilding inputs. Escape begins when you change what feeds your mind, your time, and your identity. Let's break that down. First, time must be reclaimed before money can be. If you don't control at least 2 uninterrupted hours per day, you are not free enough to build leverage. Those hours must be boring, uncomfortable, disconnected, no notifications, no consumption, no reacting. This is where most people fail. They try to escape using stolen minutes. That never works. Systems are built in blocks, not fragments. Second, identity must shift before results do. If you still see yourself as someone trying, you will behave like someone waiting. Escapers don't wait for certainty. They test small, controlled bets. They don't need permission. They need feedback. This is why faceless systems work so well. No social risk, no identity exposure, no reputation tax, just output data iteration. Third, income must detach from time. This doesn't mean passive overnight fantasies. It means building assets that compound attention or execution. Content, tools, systems, processes. Anything that can produce results while you sleep, rest, or think. If income stops when effort stops, you are still contained. And no, this doesn't require quitting your job immediately. That's another lie. The system loves when people leap without structure, because they usually fall back in obediently. Real exits are quiet, boring, methodical. They don't announce themselves. They slowly make the old system irrelevant. Here's a hard truth most people don't want to hear. If you feel stuck, it's because your environment is stronger than your intentions. Willpower loses to systems every time. That's why discipline eventually fails. That's why motivation fades. Only structure wins. Structure that favors creation over consumption. Structure that rewards leverage over effort. Structure that compounds instead of drains. And once you taste even a small amount of structural freedom, you'll never see the system the same way again. Because the system isn't broken, it's working perfectly, just not for your escape. That part is your responsibility. If you want a shortcut, there isn't one. But if you want a map, you start by building one controlled system outside the one you're in. One asset, one channel, one leverage point. Not because it's guaranteed, but because staying contained is. And that's the real risk no one talks about. If this video resonated, you already know why. You don't need hype. You need clarity and execution. That's exactly what the Money Logic Playbook is for. It lays out the mental model, the structure, and the system thinking required to build leverage quietly without burning your life down. Links are below if you want it. And if you're building anything digital, tools like 11 Labs and automation platforms save years of friction. I use them for a reason. No BS, no inspiration bait, just systems. Subscribe if you want to keep seeing behind the system, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And the only real mistake after that is staying exactly where you are.